Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, June 27th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 67 days, the game against Michigan in 151 days, and there might be a little head-to-head competition between Ohio State and Michigan happening before then. We're going to be talking about that on today's show. Specifically, we're talking about the recruitment of cornerback Aaron Scott. He's out of Springfield, Ohio, one of the most sought-after players on Ohio State's board, Michigan's board for this 2024 recruiting cycle. Ohio State just scored a big win over Michigan in recruiting at the cornerback position in the state of Ohio over the weekend when Bryce West committed. Now we're talking Aaron Scott, and we're going to be doing that with our good buddy Alex Gleitman at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Alex, this was a big recruiting weekend where the Buckeyes brought in both of those two top corner prospects among many, many other guys, but they land the commitment from Bryce West. Aaron Scott now has visited Michigan. He's visited Ohio State in quick succession. Where do things stand with Aaron Scott right now after those visits?
I would probably throw that question back at you, Tom, because I think it's a question that everyone's asking, and I don't think anyone really has the answer to that question other than Aaron Scott, and he may not even have the answer to that question right now. I do think it will be Ohio State or Michigan. I think I don't even know who else is technically in his top group at this point. I know Oregon's up there. I think maybe Penn State. I don't really know who else. I don't think it really matters because I think it's Ohio State and Michigan, and those are the two schools I've been focusing on for a long time. Spoke to a bunch of people who spent a lot of time with Aaron this past weekend. The vibe was kind of like, how do I even put it, like cautiously optimistic. But nobody wanted to go that like full distance and say, yeah, I think we're getting Aaron Scott. Any of the recruits that spent time with him couldn't really get a read on him. He's playing this thing very, very close to the vest. I think he's playing with fans' heartstrings a little bit, posting Michigan pictures the day he goes to Ohio State for his official visit, taking them down, probably because someone told him that wasn't a good look or the best look. Maybe a little disrespectful as you head in to meet the coaches. I think he's having fun with this process. I think he's truly enjoying it. I don't know if he knows where he's going or not. Right now, as I've been saying, I had Ohio State for quite a while in this one, not with a ton of confidence, but until I hear otherwise firmly, I've got to still roll with that. But I like, if we're talking 1 to 10 on a confidence scale, 10 being most confident, 1 being least, if I'm picking Ohio State, I'm probably picking that with like a 2 or 3 confidence level. Not a ton of confidence behind that pick, whereas some others we might talk about here, I might feel a little bit better about.
Well, I guess one thing that was really interesting, I saw last week, and this was floated on a Michigan site, the idea that it was more likely that Bryce West and Aaron Scott would end up at the same school, so that if Michigan was more likely to get 2 of those guys than one of those guys. Now, I don't know that I necessarily buy it, but the thinking behind that was there's going to be a lot of, these guys are obviously kind of going through the same process at the same schools. You may have a little bit of pressure from one to do what the other one's doing. I don't know how much to put on that, but the commitment of Bryce West last weekend obviously was a huge one for Ohio State for just Bryce West purposes. He's obviously a huge, huge piece of this class now, but do you think that plays any kind of role? How often do we talk about package deals not being a real thing? Do you put any stock in that idea at all, or not really?
No, I never have bought into that, never will. Not the package deal thing, more so in this scenario. Kind of the package deal thing too. But look, I think Bryce and Aaron are good friends. I think they obviously, to your point, have gone through a lot of the same things in this process, being elite Ohio prospects with a lot of schools trying to convince them that maybe Ohio State's not the best place for them to play. For me, I've had Bryce West at Ohio State since the minute he got offered, not just because he's Glenville, but because of intel I've had. And I was told last December, I was told Bryce is in. He's told the coaches his intentions. He just wants to go through the process before he makes it official. And I had that was my firm. I remember I came back from a trip and I put a stake in the ground, Bryce West will be a Buckeye. And there was never a doubt in my mind. Aaron, I think, is truly on the fence. Like, I think I could see him going to Michigan. I wouldn't be shocked if he went to Michigan. Bryce West, I would have been absolutely astonished if he went to Michigan. So I never bought into like the two of them potentially going to Michigan. I think these guys, and that's the thing with package deals too, they're not always true, because as you go through the process, what's best for one might not be best for the other. And in this case, the Ohio State might be best for both, but it may also not be. And you got to make the decision that's best for you, because you can't tie it to something else. I think having guys on the roster or in this recruiting class that you're comfortable with, that you're friends with, I think that makes it easier to pick Ohio State. So it's certainly like every edge is a good edge in recruiting. So I think it's a positive for Ohio State, obviously, that they have Bryce West and some of these other guys that have hit it off with Aaron throughout the recruiting process, and things of that nature. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think it will work out as of now, but with Aaron, I wouldn't be surprised if he went up north. Bryce, I would have been like maybe one of the more shocking things I've ever covered in recruiting.
Is there any sense from the folks you're talking to about when the decision could come from Aaron Scott, or is that still, if a decision hasn't been made, then there's no timetable for a decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true. He's not just going to make a decision to make a decision. Kevin, I think, posted something on Twitter, like, quote unquote, sometime in July. And I like that. I like that timeline. I think, I was like reading I thought I read somewhere that he was saying either like maybe July 4th, or his dad's birthday is later in July, I believe. And maybe one of those dates, July 4th, maybe make some fireworks for one team, or another. I think he'll do it before his camp opens up, in August. So I expect it to be sometime within the next month or so. So we'll know soon enough.
All right, well, we will know soon enough on him, and let's move from one Scott to another. Let's talk about five-star defensive tackle Justin Scott. He was visiting over the weekend as well. That's a position where Ohio State has, they landed Caden McDonald this cycle, who was a very, very big, a big addition for them. And, the interior of that defensive line is one of those spots where you've got to keep churning those guys, because that is not an easy spot for guys to get on the field right away. So you've got to make sure you have a good, consistent pipeline of talent on the interior of that defensive line, because I talked to Larry Johnson about a month ago about this. The interior of that defensive line, it takes guys longer just to get up the strength and the physical, the physical toll that it takes on you on the interior of that defensive line. It just takes longer to get physically ready to play there from when you first step on campus. So it's really important to keep that pipeline on the interior of the defensive line going. So is Justin Scott someone, how likely is it looking that Justin Scott could be one of those next guys on the interior of that defensive line pipeline for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, it's funny, because I came into the weekend feeling like it was a pretty decent-sized uphill battle. And I felt that way in this recruitment for a while. But after the visit, I think the sentiment from talking to some people inside the Woody that have knowledge of this one is that we've got a real chance here. I think, early on, maybe Georgia was kind of that coming off a national title, two straight national titles, and putting out, draft pick after draft pick. I think that they were kind of like the hot pick at the time, and maybe he was leaning that way. I know, obviously, look, Miami's coming after him hard, and there's no secret as to what they're doing out there in the recruiting trail. And I know, he's a Chicago kid, and Notre Dame. Al Washington there, he's a good recruiter. Like, say what you want about him and his time at Ohio State, but he knows how to build relationships with kids. So does Marcus Freeman. They both do a great job. Notre Dame being close to home in Chicago, I think that's a school that's had its moment. But, interestingly enough, Ohio State and I think even Michigan now are kind of two schools where as I put it in my my little write-up the other day, are like the arrows pointing up for Ohio State, and I think Michigan also. I think as this process is going on, where I was getting was like, I think maybe it's Justin's realized like staying in the Midwest is maybe the move and not going to Georgia or maybe Miami. So I kind of think like if I had to bet, I would place a bet on him to either end up at Ohio State, Notre Dame, or Michigan, I think, at this point. And I like Ohio State's chances a lot better when you talk about going up against those two schools. than I do against, if he was a full NIL play, I think Miami is tough. And then, Georgia's Georgia. Like, the results speak for themselves, especially defensive linemen. So we'll see. I think this is a recruitment that probably goes the distance, at least well into the fall. I think they'll have a chance to bring him back for a game in the fall. It seems like Penn State's the game they're trying to get all their big-time targets to. Wouldn't be shocked if he makes it out there. Wouldn't be shocked if he I think Notre Dame's trying to get him for an official when they play Ohio State. So that could be an opportunity for Ohio State to show him a little something while he's there visiting Notre Dame. So we'll see. I guess I'm in wait and see mode with him, but I feel whereas like maybe I had it as like a 10, somewhere between a 10 to 20% chance, I might have this now in like the 40 to 50% chance range that they end up with Justin Scott.
I know all these Ohio State-Michigan head-to-head recruiting battles are not good for the stomach or the nerves of a lot of the folks who are on our boards or on other boards around the internet. But man, it is really fun to have Ohio State and Michigan battling back and forth for some of these top recruits now. It feels like it's been a decade since that's happened. It is really fun to have some of the nonsense flying back and forth online between the two fan bases again. That's always kind of fun to me. Last guy I wanted to ask you about, not an Ohio State-Michigan battle, 2024 linebacker Kingston Viliamu-Asa. He's out of St. John Bosco in California. That's the school that produced Wyatt Davis, Court Williams. That's a school where Ohio State has pulled some talent in recent years. And he had a visit this weekend. It sounds like that went reasonably well. What are the odds that Kingston Viliamu-Asa is the third linebacker in this Ohio State class?
Maybe I'm dumb, but like the opposite of Aaron Scott. I'm not going to say I'm a 10 out of 10 on the confidence scale, but maybe like a 7 out of 10 calling Ohio State here. I've had Ohio State as a leader for quite some time. The one thing that worried me more than anything, I think, was, just the distance from home. And I know he's talked to me since he was a freshman, I think, about not caring about that. But at the end of the day, when you're ready to make that decision, you could go to USC when USC is a good team that will probably make the playoff every single year in a 12-team playoff, compete for national titles, compete for, I was going to say Pac-12, but compete for Big Ten titles. It's like, it's hard to pull a kid from a St. John Bosco or a Mater Dei or programs like that out in California that, when USC's good, they don't really miss on kids at those types of programs. And I just think Ohio State has had a lead here. While I know USC felt like maybe they're going to keep him home, Notre Dame, from people I spoke to, thought they had him after their official visit. Maybe they were reading things wrong, or maybe he was being polite. I don't know, but I've never wavered from Ohio State, and I think after this weekend, I feel pretty good. I mean, things can change between now and whenever his decision is. There's no set date, but I do expect it to be probably sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Things can always change. He can always have a last-second change of heart where, hey, you know what? I actually, after thinking about it, I really don't want to leave home, or for whatever reason, Notre Dame's the pick. I don't think it's going to go that way. I think Ohio State is going to win out. I think he's going to be the third linebacker in this class with Garrett Stover, Peyton Pierce. I think James Laurinaitis, getting him from I think Ohio State could have got him anyway, but I think getting James Laurinaitis from Notre Dame, where he had a relationship there, I think that was huge. And I think just this weekend, they made him feel really comfortable, made his family feel really comfortable hanging out with Peyton Pierce. I think a guy who's going to be in a room with him potentially for the next 3 to 5 years. I think that was really big. So I feel good about Kingston Viliamu-Asa coming to Ohio State. We'll see.
All right. So there's one that Ohio State fans could at least be keeping an eye on. And there was another one of this weekend's visitors in your article that you wrote, kind of recapping the weekend. You listed as, and I'm going to read a direct quote here, in all caps, and think this is a done deal. So who is that Alex thinks is a done deal in the class? Well, you've got to check the huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com, which is members only, to find that information. You can find that there, as well as the identity of at least one 2025 prospect at a big position of need who Alex thinks they are in pretty good shape with as well. So some really, really good intel from Alex there at BuckeyeHuddle.com. As always, we love to give you a bunch of information on these shows, but there's always much more at BuckeyeHuddle.com from Alex, from Mark Givler, also killing it on the recruiting beat, Tony, Kevin, and I covering the team, Ross and Mikey and Justin and Devin making you a smarter football fan with the X's and O's, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So sign up today. Should be a very, very interesting month as we head into camp season is over. July means we're going to kind of be wrapping up a lot of these summer recruitments, probably get a few more commitments this month, and then we're only about 3.5 weeks away from Big Ten Media Days. Yes, the unofficial start of the season is already almost here, so sign up today, give it a try. I think you're going to like the community, you're going to like the intel, you're going to like it all at BuckeyeHuddle.com, so sign up today, give it a try for a month, see if you like it, and then if you do, well, stick around for the season, sign up for an annual membership, it's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.